Good morning, everybody. It is Kaf Daled Tevet, Tafshin Tevet, and it is 28th, December 28th, I think. Yeah, December 28th, 2021. It is the Hilulah or the Yortzeit today of the Balatanya. It's also called the Alter Rebbe. In Hebrew, he's often referred to as the Emuna Hazaken. And his name was Shnei Or Zalman Mi Liadi, right? Shnei Or Zalman of Liadi. We just have a candle here, so we're going to begin by lighting the candle for the Ilui Nishmat Shnei Or Zalman Mi Liadi Nishmato Ya'aleh. Thank him for bringing the Tanya to us. The Tanya is also called the Sefer Beinonim, right? The book for the intermediary. And by intermediary, we mean very dedicated and committed and serious people who are really, really wanting to live in a state of Ikut and Emet, and are willing to constantly start again, like living in the state of Ratzon Shov, of rising and falling, rising and falling, rising and falling, again and again, and never falling into oldness, right? Never falling into despair, because despair comes from feeling that something is old and is repetitive. So one of the biggest gifts that the Alter Rebbe gave us about being a Beinoni is it's really not about arriving. It's about the devotion and the love of getting up again and beginning again. And that's very, very precious to Hashem. And we put a lot of emphasis on the results. And we put a lot of emphasis on getting somewhere, being something finished, some finished product in the end. Whereas the Alter Rebbe gave us this beautiful gift that there are different shlichut, right? There are different purposes for different types of souls. And some souls are just meant even to hold space in the connected and in between spaces between higher worlds and lower worlds, and to hold that space almost like a shomer, right, or a soldier holds the border, right, on an important piece of land and property. And this is one of the purposes of the Beinoni, right? That the Beinoni may never get there, wherever there is, right? But Hashem has great joy and sweetness and delight from the efforts of the Beinoni, right? Of the intermediate, in terms of the soul that's called the intermediate. So not a soul that has given up and is just following a path of worldly desires all of the time, or sort of survival instincts all the time, thinking I can never do this, I can never overcome my temptation, or I can never really truly change my nature. Look at all these years that I've been trying, and I'm still falling in the same places, in the same patterns, in the same relationships, right? So the Beinoni, even having seen that I'm all these years later, I'm going in circles and I'm still repeating my same mistakes, doesn't give up, right? And understands that it's the effort, with the effortlessness, right? We've said often, the mate below mate, meaning the effort is born out of love, right? Not out of anger and frustration, but out of a true desire to unfold one's highest and fullest potential as a love offering to the world and to Hashem, mostly to our Creator and to our creation as a whole. But we don't get trapped in the anger or the rage or the despair of not being able to be that which we would like to become, knowing that the process itself is a great, great worth and great, great value. So I think especially all times, especially in this time, it's a really important and beautiful message to remind ourselves of today in honor of the Alter Rebbe. And so I was thinking that I am sorry because this is being recorded and I hope it'll be okay. But I kind of wanted to begin with the nigun of the Dalit Avos, because this is a very special nigun that in Chabad Hasidus is only sung. It's so high and it has such powerful energy to pierce through and connect all four worlds, or what we mean by worlds is states of consciousness. And another way we could say that is the world of the physical body, right? The world of the nefesh, the physical body and physical existence, and then transcending that, but including, right? We don't leave it behind; we take it with us. The world of ruach, right, or the world of our feelings or the emotional body, and then transcending, but including now both the nefesh and the ruach, moving into the world of neshama, or the mental body, or the world of thought, right? And then the fourth level, right, the lap of atzilut, and the spiritual world, the spiritual body, and the world that is closest to the first emanation of existence as it comes out from the infinite light, the All Itself, the Atzilut, which is connected to Chaya and Yechidah. And so in this nigun, it consists of 4 repetitions of the same nigun, but moving up an octave each time. So and you can hear the rise and the fall of the notes, and the rise and the fall of the notes are deeply connected to what we said before, to the avodah, or the devotional, heartfelt work and heart and soul and body offerings of the Benoni, right? As the neshama and the body go through Ratzon Shov, right? Rising and having a breakthrough and a peak experience, a change in our nature, an epiphany, moments of enlightenment, and then falling back again into states of unconsciousness and sleep, right? And we can hear that pattern in the nigun itself, moments of reaching to very high notes, and then moments to descending to very low notes. And yet there is a consistent climb and a spiraling, that even as the notes are rising and falling, the octaves themselves are rising from stanza to stanza. So the neshama and the body, they are moving within cycles of more integration and more harmony between them, and more revelation of our healing of our subconscious motivations and thoughts and feelings and ideas, and our unconscious and our super conscious, right? Of course, as well as the conscious, and moving up and down between those states of consciousness, right? And those worlds, as we call them in the language of Kabbalah, Sedut, right? Without despairing, right? With the knowledge that the notes are being strung together, and that over the years and over the days, really, we're learning more and more how to refine our nigun and how to play more and more in tune. Right? Our personal nigun, right? Because our actual soul is creating its own personal nigun of all of it that it's gone through, which is the rise and fall of the various notes and the major keys and the minor keys, and then as well as the nigun that's the klali, right? The general and collective nigun. So you're welcome to sing along um, with the recording or with us live here. If you're on Zoom, please feel free to unmute and sing with us. So this is the nigun of the dollar box. It should be for the elevation of the neshama, the Alter Rebbe. We're just on the heels. Yesterday was the birthsite of the wrestler Rav of Spot, and as the Rebbe said of the world, both Elazar Mordechai and Gedaliahu are it's really interesting because his family actually came from a Chabad background and they became wrestlers. So there's a deep connection between the roots of Chabad and wrestling. I often think of it and experience it as the Moach and the Lev. It's Chabad. Every Chassidut is about both. Of course, it's about integration, but Chabad often stresses Moach Shalit al Lev, right? That our mind should be parenting our heart and not the other way around. Right? The mind, in other words, that thought has an ability to parent and teach the emotions, right? How to integrate and use them and work with those energies. And rest lev is being, basal lev basal, as being, having a fleshy heart, meaning a soft and compassionate nature and emotional nature. So we're all invited to sing together. Everybody, hope you enjoy the journey through the four worlds. So we're just gonna rely and trust on Hashem to guide this shiur because that's sort of all over the place. We're preparing so many flights are coming in at once, and I think that we're going to begin by taking a look at some Torah on Osnat, right? Because this class is meant to be a class in Nashim Tanach, and one of the themes that we're going to be seeing is this idea of the greatest leaders having to spend, the greatest male leaders, we should say, having to spend time for some reason in jail, right? And today is the yahrzeit of the Alter Rebbe, and the Alter Rebbe spent time in jail. Many people are not aware that the Rebbe himself also spent time in prison in France. He was part of a Hasbana, of a protest when he was studying at the Sorbonne, the Reva, right? And there seems to be something going all the way back to our blueprints. Avram Avinu was in jail from Nimrod. Remember, before he was thrown into the Kishana Esh, he was in jail. Again, we often don't speak about this. For some reason, putting it together, right? These experiences of being imprisoned, of literally being imprisoned, and of years of one's potential being locked up and being disconnected from the tzibur, from the whole, right? And it's interesting if we go through just a very quick overview right, of Avraham Avinu being imprisoned, of well, I don't know if we want to open it and expand it, right? But there seems to be also states of imprisonment, right? What we might call holy aloneness, that maybe they're not literally in jail, but they're in a state of deep, almost hiddenness, preparing them seemingly, right, for their shlichut, for their mission, before they are taken out from those states. So not to unfold the whole cycle right now, because I really want to look at the women. So, but just to notice that Yosef HaTzadik, of course, he was in the bowl, he was in the pit, but following that, he was literally in Paro's jail, which was actually, Potiphar was worked for Paro. So ultimately, he was in Paro's jail, but it was in Potiphar's sheet, right? He was in jail. Something we don't often talk about, and we will talk about today, is that Yitro also, the Fi Midrash, and the Fi many teachings from Chazal, imprisoned Moshe Rabbeinu, also in a bowl, which was also a jail. Right? We skip over that sometimes. We forget that Moshe Rabbeinu was also in jail. Many years later, of course, many of the Hasidic rabbis, but I'm not going to unpack that today because I want to focus on the women and this interesting connection that we're going to find between Yosef and his relationship with Eshet Potiphar, right? And then later his wife Osnat, and how jail is a central theme here. And Dafka, that it's the man, right, the future leader being imprisoned, and that the Yeshua and the salvation seems to be deeply connected to the righteous women, right, to the women who are in their paths. And when we talk about Eshet Potiphar, we might need to rethink what that looks like and what that means, right? Was she, Chazal have thought all these discussions. Was she a tzadikah? Was she not? Was she a rasha? Was she, something what we might call, once again, using azus l'kedusha, right? Seemingly tools of darkness, but for the sake of promoting the light. And we're going to see the deep connection also to Tzipporah and Moshe, and once again, a man being in a state of imprisonment, which we might understand as being in a state of mochin dekatnut, right, of a young and immature consciousness. And let's just take a moment and reconnect this to the last couple of weeks that we were learning about Yocheved, and we didn't do Yocheved yet on the inside, but just peripherally we touched on Yocheved. We did Miriam very deeply in the inside, but as Miriam, once again, being connected to taking men out of these imprisoned states of consciousness, and that it's a real gift to know how to do that. And there seems to be a whole spectrum in our toolbox, right? From not so subtle to extremely adin and nuanced and subtle, right? Like later we'll get to the Benot Slachad, and I'd love to explore with all of you this year the Benot Hul, right? Who Chazal very cryptically talk about, right? They're so nuanced in their evolution of their own femininity, and how then that's mashpia on the masculine, right? On the zichli. Okay, so right, but just kind of noticing these different states where it is specifically the malchut, right, the isha, that is first and foremost literally sustaining the men when they're in those states of being imprisoned. Right, so that's just something to first notice, right? Literally keeping them alive, keeping them going. And if we go back into Mitzrayim, of course, we know that there's famous Midrashim. We'll get to this more, please God, when we get to the Parashat of the Mishkan. But of course, this whole idea that the men were deeply me'ash, right? They deeply despaired. What were they despairing of? So I'm gonna, we can unpack it out of just the historical Mitzrayim, right, and into present day Mitzrayim, right? I think a lot of times we despair of ourselves first and foremost. If we can truly change our nature, if we can truly change or transform or become something new, especially when we're in cycles of repeating patterns, even though we know those patterns are causing ourselves pain and suffering and causing others pain and suffering. Or causing ourselves, self-loathing or humiliation, or we despair, right? Of how do I really get unstuck? And is it even me who will unstuck myself, right? And seems to show up over and over again, from the beginning all the way back to Adam HaRishon, that it seems to affect men more deeply somehow. Right? Strangely, women seem to fall lower. Right? We know that Malchus falls lower because it's the bottom of the Eitz HaChaim. It's the bottom of the mapping or the coding of the essential tree of life. So when Malchut falls, it has nowhere to fall but into the lower three klipot, right? For those of you who are at home and you don't understand what I'm saying, it's that there are some energies that are so complicated and complex and hidden, seemingly, right, the sources and the roots of the greatest suffering, the greatest despair, the greatest pain in the world. When Malchut falls, right, that's the feminine, or even when men are in a state of being receptive and receivers, right, so vis-a-vis Hashem, right, they are the Malchut. When Malchut falls into these lower three energy fields that are very self-absorbed, right, very fear-filled, very resentment-filled, very anger-filled. And maybe the crux or the core is that it's a place of such darkness because one is so engrossed, enmeshed, and focused on self, right? That and it feels that that's what's necessary in order to survive. So we get looped into these cycles, right, of interacting and dancing with these sort of very dark energies and patterns within ourselves too. And maybe yearning for something higher, and yearning to become a different person, and yearning to transform our nature, but not succeeding. So 2 gifts. One we just got from the altar Reva, that there's value even in trying and starting over again, right? Even if we never, so to speak, get there or succeed. That's one gift that we're offered through Hasidus. And another gift is perhaps we need to learn to untry and or try in a different way. Right? So, like, as you all know, not yet so great at technology. So I could try, 22 times to turn on a smartphone and say, I can't do it, it's not working, I can't do it. And then the 23rd time, someone will come and say, maybe you've been pushing the wrong button. And then, oh, that's the on button, right? And so the 23rd time is the charm, because I'm trying it now in a slightly different way, with slightly different skills and information. Right? So there seems to be this sort of pattern where even though women fall lower, we're also more deeply encoded with this Bina Yetera, with a desire to learn, and with software that enables us to keep seeing the bigger picture, keep seeing a long-term, fuller connection between all that's happening. We call that the Bina Yetera, which is a sort of more global and right brain way of experiencing life. I don't need to confuse any of you, okay? Because in the classic Kabbalistic texts, it will be referred to as the left brain. It's just only more recently that we sort of make sense of the Hasidic teachings of the Heichal HaTorot, or the exchange children, that the left hemisphere of the brain controls the right side of the body, and the right hemisphere of the brain controls the left side of the body, which we love, because that gives us the Geuludic and the Mashiachic integration of the masculine and feminine that we've known is there all along. So I'm sorry if that confused anybody. To keep it simple for now, we'll just call the left side, Bina, and the right side, Chachma. Okay, so I was just fascinated when I was preparing to keep coming across. It seems part of the preparation for a man in his shlichut to spend time in jail, or the pit, or the hole, or the bowl, right? Again and again and again. That's part of the preparation of them growing and unfolding the greatness of their being. And again, the women seem to show up as reflecting, well, first and foremost, sustaining them in those times of being imprisoned. And interestingly enough, even when the women seemingly are imprisoned, like Sarah in the box, or Rivka, or Dina, it's interesting, isn't it, that they're sustained seemingly directly from Shemayim, right? Through their direct connection with Hashem. We don't see Abraham davening for Sarah. I'm sure he did. I don't get me wrong. I love Abraham. We're just talking about now Chazal, right? We see Sarah davening for herself. And we see in the Midrash, Hashem sending Malachim to protect her, right? But do you hear kind of what I'm saying now, right? So it's the women seem to have to learn how to get sourced directly from Hashem as part of their Yeshua, even when they're the ones imprisoned, taken captive. It's not the men coming to their rescue. And this is something, again, that we see in the conversation between Rachel and Yaakov, right? He's really saying to her, I mean, I can't daven for you, but it's also about you growing this tremendous gift of Bina Yetera within yourself. Because remember that Bina is deeply connected to Tshuva, and therefore to Tefillah, to wholeness, to integration. So I think that I was curious as I was thinking about all these women that we don't often have classes about, like Bilhah and Zilpah, like Osnat, right? Like Eshet Potiphara, like Tzipporah. We just so often talk about the Imahot, and then it's very common also to learn about Miriam. I don't think we talk a lot about Yocheved, right? And so I thought it would be interesting today to learn about Osnat and about her mother, her two mothers, right? And how they share such a similar fate. And they're all tied up with Yosef Tzaddik, right? So we have Osnat and her mother, Dina, and her stepmother, or adoptive mother, we should say, Potiphera. And right, so those are her two mothers. So that's very important right away. In other words, that's where, when we say mother in Torah, what we mean is the makol, is the root source, the root system of this soul. And it's very fitting that we're learning this now, because we're in the month of Tevet, and remember, we're really finishing the root system of the tree, because by next month, the first buds are going to be out. The first little nitzanim and flowers are going to be out. So what's happening now is really these deep, deep roots firmly planted in Malchut, in the ground, in the earth, that are later, the whole system and health and further health of the tree is dependent upon the root system. Right? So whenever we look at somebody, right, this is why we say, okay, so I'm, Reva, Emuna, Bat Sarah. Right? That's my coding. In other words, I come from these roots, who come from these roots, who come from these roots. And that means I'm carrying all of that inside of me, both their gifts and their tikkunim, and their challenges. Okay, so she has this double connection. She has two mothers. One of her mothers, her biological mother, is Dina, and the mother who raises her. And soon we're going to see that Chazal say, when you raise an orphan, you are halachically their parent. So she has two halachic parents. Right? We in the West, we tend to say, stepmother, or terms like that. But Chazal don't look at it like that. Chazal look at it because that mother is equally nourishing, right? Educating, watering, we can say, that tree, that seed, that little sapling. Okay? And we're going to see that both of her mothers have deep, deep roots of connection to the person who will be her future husband. Yosef HaTzadik, right? So let's look at the two. So her biological mother, Dinah, before she's even born, right? There's an energetic future connection waiting to happen, right? It hasn't even happened yet. In other words, right? We know that Leah was pregnant with a boy, and Chazal tell us that was the neshama of Yosef HaTzadik, or the masculine side of the shared neshama of Yosef and Dinah. And Leah davens, right, that she should have a girl, so that her sister Rachel will not birth less of the Shvatim than Bilhah and Zilpah, who originally were maidservants, but later became full-fledged wives. We forget to teach it like that. It's so important, right? Because those became the roots of the fights between Am Yisrael later, right? They're the sons of the real wives, and they're the sons of the maidservants. So Chazal go out of their way to say, no, Yaakov married them with ketubas, right? To elevate all of the wives and all of the women to the same status. Okay, so Leah davens that this baby should change into a girl. So the baby that's inside of her originally as the masculine side of this neshama, also known as Yosef, becomes in her womb the feminine side of this neshama, Dinah. There's already, we see a deep energetic connection between Dinah and Yosef. Right? So it's just put this in your notes because it's fascinating. Energetically, they're brother and sister almost, right? Or they're two halves. They're even soulmates. They're two halves of the same neshama. But when they take on human body form, they're going to be mother-in-law and son-in-law. What we mean by that is that, right, when we study Kabbalah and Chassidut, we are taught that souls have sholshei neshamot, right, the roots, and then there's also anafim, or branches, and alim, or leaves. And souls tend to hang out with their root other souls. In other words, souls sharing similar fate, similar cycles of stories, similar journeys of transformation and elevation, similar issues that want to be worked through and opened. So, of course, we're going to notice right away that in this family, the core issue is going to be tikkun habrit. Core issue is going to be working through the shadow sides of physical intimacy in its most extreme shadows of onus or rape, right on the side of Dinah, all the way to the side of Yosef HaTzadik, who is given that title because he has mastered these energies within himself, and therefore gives those mastered energies to his wife, Osnat, and passes them on to his children, Ephraim and Nashim. Okay, so that's her biological mother, Dinah, right? And her biological mother, of course, so already from her birth, she has it's sensitive to say this in today's day and age. It's just sensitive to what I'm going to say right now. So I hope it'll be received in equal sensitivity. But she has a fluidity, Dina, right, of understanding both masculine and feminine because she was masculine. She began her life as the masculine. I mean, I don't want to say anything that stirs controversy and politics, and because it just causes a lot of merry-go-rounds. But I do think it's interesting, everything that's happening in the world today with people identifying in as this sex or that sex. Because we find even in Torah, for some reason, Hashem has this reason where neshamas will experience on an energetic level what it is to be masculine or what it is to be feminine, and switch. And this, there are other places, it's a different topic, but right, it's talked about also with Yitzchak and Rivka and their neshamas. And why would Hashem do those switches, right? And it seems that it helps them to have a deep, resonant understanding of the other, so that there can be true union and connection. Right? So there's something that Dina has, that she began life as Yosef. And later on, she reunited with that part of herself through her daughter reclaiming that lost part of herself. Did you follow that? Very profound, right? Her daughter reclaims the lost masculine that both she and her daughter share. Beautiful, isn't it? Which isn't that so often the case, right? Our children inherit, unfortunately, our pain and our unfinished tikkunim, but they equally inherit new tools that we didn't have, right? New spiritual kelim, and not just spiritual, right? New kelim coming down into the world during their times that will help them to further birth these beautiful realignments or tikkunim. So the other mother of Osnat is Eshet Potifera. We call her Eshet Potifera. And by the way, it's very deep to notice then biologically who are Osnat's two fathers. She also has two fathers as much as she has two mothers, right? Her biological father is who? Shem, right? That's going to play a role also spiritually and also in her journey, right? So she also has two fathers. She has her biological father is Shem, her adopted father, which later again Chazal are going to tell us is her halachic father because he raises her and teaches her and provides for her and nourishes her, is no less than Potifera. Now let's get this straight. Her father is the one who imprisons her future husband. Those are mother-in-law and father-in-law jokes waiting to happen, just for those of you who have a comedic streak. As I do. You understand? I mean, that's very profound, right? Now, if we were to understand for a moment imprisonment, not just as literal sitting in jail, which they did, but that somehow whoever this person's neshama is at times blocking or stagnating the potential or the unfolding of this other neshama, will ultimately see that it's actually for their greatest growth. That's another way. Did you follow that? That we mean by imprisonment, right? Potiphar is imprisoning Yosef. What does that mean? Seemingly, he's stopping his growth. He seemingly is an obstacle in Yosef's unfolding of his shlichut, right? Except in the great benahapachud, right, the turnaround that always happens in the story, he will actually end up being a promoter of Yosef's unfolding and growth in more ways than one. And in the most obvious way, it's because this whole time he has been providing for and raising Yosef's future wife, who will get him out of prison. Isn't that funny that the same person who's imprisoning him is also providing his escape from prison through the feminine? Did you guys follow that? Yes, that's where I was going to go with this. Exactly. So let's say it out loud so that they can hear. So we're going to be exactly threading this together, that this is the same exact story with Yitro and Moshe. Right? Again, they're both non-Jewish fathers, right? Yitro and Potiphar. They both imprison their future son-in-laws. And now we're going to begin to see also that there is something that happens when these men are in jail, that they begin to get nourishment and sustenance through the feminine. So what I mean by that is that both Sipora and Eshet Potiphar were actually sustaining them when they were in prison. Right? Sipora sustaining Moshe, Eshet Potiphar originally was sustaining Yosef, promoting him and providing for him. Okay, so I can't really see if people are on. I think there's one person on Zoom. I just see one picture. Are there any? So whoever's on Zoom, if you have a question, please unmute and ask. So I can't unmute you. I'm afraid to mess up the recording. Do you guys have any questions up until now? And then we'll jump into the texts.
Yeah. How did Aisha play from?
Well, originally she well, let's look inside also. What I wanted to learn today was maybe we should start with her and go. Maybe we should go. Let's see. Yeah, sorry, I know you're pausing. Okay. Yeah, we'll start with Osnat. I was going to say let's learn about Eshet Potiphar, but I think as we go into Potiphar, we'll also learn more about Osnat. Oh, okay. Sorry, everybody on the recording. The woman just took a break, and so I'm sorry. Does anybody on the Zoom want to ask a question? I don't even know who's here. I just see these beautiful Magenta leads. Thank you. Oh my goodness. This is... I'm sorry, everybody, on the recording for the long pause. Some things are happening here in the live space. We'll be back in a second. Okay. So, oh, amazing. Okay. So, let's just start. Yeah. No, we have not done this. Oh, hi, everybody. Now I see you. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. So let's start with, so her name was Zlicha, otherwise known as Mrs. Potiphar. Right? Zlicha. Zayin Lamed Yud Kaf He. So it's interesting. The first thing that jumped out at me when I saw this is that if you look at the letters of her name, right, you actually get Zekli. So it's very interesting to realize that she, right, she is. Hold on, I'm looking at something here while I'm talking. I'm so sorry. She raises Osnat. Now, what kind of a woman could she have been to raise a woman that would be on the level of Tikkun Habri, worthy of Yosef Hatzadik? Right? She gets like a very bad rap, and we'll explore a little bit. Let's see. So she was in Akara, she was barren, and she raised Osnat as her own daughter. So let's go into some of these teachings about Osnat. I think we'll go back and forth, maybe a little between Osnat and Zlicha. So the first thing about Zlicha to notice is that everybody in those days were very into astrology, right? And her astrologers told her that she would have children with Yosef. So very much like Paro's astrologers, they were very close but off, right? And we have the very famous Torah of if not Potiphar, then Potiphar's daughter. Right? In other words, she was right in what she saw, but it was skewed a bit, right? But her soul did have connection to Yosef. She was right, because Yosef would be the father of her grandchildren. Not only would Yosef be the father of her grandchildren, but just let this sink in for a second. The irony, right? That it's precisely because he doesn't give in to her advances that her grandchildren become this continued line of Tikkun Habrit. Okay, so what do we hear also in that? He also fixes his mother-in-law. Oh God, that's a joke waiting to happen. Right? Why do we care? Why are we saying all of this? Right? Why do we care? Maybe the first thing to notice is that we contract with one another. Let's apply this right here, right now, even to Tzfat, right? We contract with one another actually to help each other to heal and grow. And it's beautiful. And as we get closer to Purim, we'll see more and more and more the Nahafahus, the switches, the turn it on your heads, that the person in the community who you might think is causing you the most pain, behind the scenes could be the person who is growing your neshama the most. Right? Things are not always what they seem. And this is very much that season because we're not yet seeing the fruits and the buds, right? We're just dealing right now with the root system. And in the root system, there's all kinds of secrets and all kinds of surprises. I mean for the good. So the person who didn't invite you to that simcha, or the person who spoke Lashon Hara about you, or the person that you dated and hurt you, or, all of these things that we hold when we're in community, and the root system, this is a group of souls who chose to take certain themes. It could be a theme of Tikkun Habrit. It can be a theme of refined speech, right? It can be a theme of love. It can be a theme of compassion, and chose to work together on these things, right? So look at this family and the whole, from the darkest, states of a lack of Tikkun Habrit to the seed roots, right? This, forever, for what it looks like in its integrated wholeness. So beautiful. And it's not a kind of perfection that we think. We think perfection means no mistakes. Chazal thinks perfection means integrating, transforming, using the mistakes, dafka, as part of the healing, as the homeopathic remedy. See, but now we can understand what's shayach between Potifara and Eshet Potifara, and they're the most degraded sexually, and Shem, right? And the most degraded sexually, and Dina Bat Yaakov and Osnat, the daughter of Dina Bat Yaakov, right? Ma kesho b'neihem. What could possibly connect those souls? And what connects those souls is an agreement to learn together and to birth the remedy together. It's gewalt, isn't it? Does anybody on Zoom have a question? Because I can't see any of you, but I see that there's people on Zoom. But any of you want to unmute? Don't write me in the chat box because this is a new system and I'm not really so good at using the chat on this yet. Anybody? Okay. Any of you guys have any questions? Okay, so far so good? Okay, so here we go. Osnat bat Potifera. Osnat hayta bito shel Potifera kohen on. So now again, we're seeing a connection between Sipora, right, and Osnat, right? Both of their adopted, both of their fathers were Kohanim, right? Two, originally, Avodah Zarah. Zipporah and Osnat.
It's not.
Yeah. Potiphar was a Kohen. Not a Jewish Kohen. A Kohen for Avodah Zarah, a Kohen of one. But what does that tell you right away? There is a deep search for spirituality. Right? These are the priests. These are the spiritual roots of the nation, both in the case of Yitro and in the case of Potiphar. ואשתו של יוסף שניתנה לו על ידי פרעה. Right now, this is already, we're going to get into wild questions here, right? Who gave, so to speak, Yosef his wife?
She's heard something from the Lord.
נכון. נכון, יש בזה משהו. Yeah, we're going to learn that midrash in a second. Yes. But on the surface, Chazal teach us Paro. Right? Again, can you hear? I mean, I'm sorry to do this a bit early because this is really getting into Purim Torahs. But you can hear the hafachim, right? It's a joke. It's meant to make you laugh. In other words, it's funny that Paro is so obsessed with getting rid of all of the boys because one of them might be the Goel. And meanwhile, he's literally feeding and bouncing the Goel on his knee in the palace. That's meant to make you laugh. It's a joke. That your Yeshua is in front of your face, but you don't see it. And the thing that you're the most scared of, that you're running to get rid of, it's also right there. It's meant to be funny. Yeah, it's funny. Like Yosef, who's the master perfection of Tikkun Habri, is being raised in a palace of the furthest thing from Tikkun Habri, and is given to Yosef through Paro. Why do we care? Again, why do we care? What does this have anything to do with us? Because we're saying our darkest and worst and most shaming experiences are the ones that are giving us our healing remedies. They're raising them, they're feeding them, they're taking care of them for us until the right time to reclaim them. Do you get the joke? It's funny. Yeah? It's delightful and crazy all at the same time. Okay. עוד לפני שהגיעו שנות הרעב על מצרים, כפתרון חלום פרעה על ידי יוסף, נולדו ליוסף מאוסנת שני בנים, מנשה ואפרים. Okay, so before there was even the years of famine, right? When there was still the years of Sova, plenty, Yosef and his wife Osnat gave birth to Ephraim and Menashe. Of course, Menashe was the older one. That in itself is a whole class, right, on the exchange children. Why do we see this so often in Torah? We're not going to do this right now, but right, the younger and the older exchange places. It has to do with what we're talking about now. The right and left exchanging places, the Buot and Chasadim changing places. All we have to know for now is that often what seems like our worst nightmare is actually our Yeshua in disguise. It's just dressed up. And it's not really often, it's basically all the time. More than that, our shlichut in the world also dresses up as our worst suffering, our worst pain. But it becomes about, I had to feel that so that I know what needs to get fixed or changed. I want to contribute that into the world. I want to be part of fixing that or elevating that. So, a couple of things that we note about Menashe and Ephraim, right? One thing we note is that they had this sort of brotherly love that was unheard of until then. They supported one another. Later on, Moshe and Aaron are also going to, but this is the first set of brothers who are not in competition with each other. They're actually seeking to elevate one another and to uphold one another and promote one another. So this is new. And by the way, you can see hidden in their names the relationship between the body and the soul. Menashe is the Shema, Ephraim is the Pli, is the fruit, is the body. Pli is always talking about the what you see in this world, right? The result, the malchus, the physical world. Because the Pri comes out the last in the tree. Roots are first, the Pri is last. The Pri is malchut, the Lem is the malchut, or to birthing something. Okay. The other thing that we notice about these brothers is they come out on the side of the year of great tshuva. So Ephraim's month is going to be the month of Tishrei, which is really a whole month, really, right, of tshuva. What specifically is it tshuva of? It's specifically the tshuva of relationships because it's Libra. Partnering, partnerships. Tikkun Havrit. And Menashe is going to give us the cheshbon, and again, the fixing again of Tikkun Havrit. Right? If you don't understand anything, please stop me and please ask.
Heshbon is what? Also
Menashe. Yeah, absolutely. The rainbow, the marble, that was all part of the fixing of the imbalancing and starting over again, trying to create a more compassionate version. Okay, so you'll see hidden in her name, she has a very deep connection to the sneh. The sneh, which is going to show up as the sneh bo'er einin ukal, the bush that's burning and not extinguished, which in itself has a deep connection to Har Sinai. Okay. Any questions up until now?
What's the connection?
Oh, we're going to get to it. Yeah. I'm just telling you from. So, I don't know who was there on Thursday, but we were just laying the foundation of Sefer Shmot. We didn't get to do the class yet. I hope with my new computer I'll be able to do it now. But this, one of the things that we spoke about, which is so important, is that there's no name that's good or bad. It's neutral, it's energy. It can be used in the service of unity and connection and light, and it can be used in the service of separation, suffering, and pain. It's a combination of various energies. That's what it is. Right? So we for example, we said, someone can look at the word, the name Miriam, and say, oh, why would somebody name a daughter when it has the word mal in it, or bitter, right? We said, okay, but there's also the word marim, right? To uplift, to elevate, right? Or you switch the letters and you get ram, right? Praising and Hashem in an elevated state. So it's energies with the potential of how we direct and work and dance within those energies. So some of Chazal translates Osnat's name as being a mitzli name. And that it's talking about Net, who was a as means shayachle, right? Shayach le, meaning having a connection with, right? And Net was a name of an Egyptian god. Because her parents named her that, right? But the otiot of her name, the Aleph, Samech, and Nun, Kaf, Osnat, we're going to see that she's holding within her seeds that are very deeply connected to Moshe Rabbeinu's experience at the Sneh and Har Sinai. What strikes you when you hear the Sneh and Har Sinai? What connection do you, and there's no right or wrong answer.
Hashem said that Moshe is going to back our Sinai to receive the Torah.
Beautiful. So the beginning of the journey and the end of the journey, right? There's something about the word Sneh that encompasses the coding. Thank you. That was so beautiful. From the beginning of the Shlichut and to Har Sinai, which the final is when we come into Eretz Israel and we're Mekayem the Torah, right? But the first shlav of that is to receive the Torah on Sinai. Okay, so we'll go back into text. Okay. So another thing that we're going to notice both about Sipora and Osnat that Chazal tell us, and for some reason this is very important, Chazal want us to take note and notice this, that they're both Giorot. They're both Gerim. This is really important. Right. So again, Chazal go through, right? Was she a Gioret? Was she not a Gioret? So for sure on the side of her Abba, right, there was a Giorut that happened, right? Because he was Shem, right? And it seems that because she was raised Mitzli, I actually just met someone like this, Paltea Shoah. In other words, she was Jewish, but she was thrown off the kinder transport. And so she was raised as a Christian. She actually had to convert to Judaism.
But it's interesting because Yosef recognized her because she had
Yes, we're getting there.
design thing that
Absolutely.
Jew,
Yeah.
Jewish family.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't know if this means she had a halachic giur, or she had to undo the Egyptian education that she got. Because she, again, remember she was raised, her roots are Dinah and Yaakov, right? Dinah by Yaakov. But she was raised by Potiphara and Slicha. So, right, so that must have affected her in some way. And yet, she's Ra'oi to marry the man who mastered his energies. Do you know what that means to master his energies? It means he's a master of the masculine and the feminine, and a master of compassion. Every time we say Tikkun Habrit, it's code in the language of Kabbalah and Hasidut for one who has mastered Rachamim. Right? Because the whole middle column is about mastering Rachamim in various ways. Mastering Rachamim in our thought, right, would give us Da'at. Mastering, and in our speech, by the way, right, would give us also Da'at. Mastering Rachamim in our eating would give us also Da'at. Tikkun Achila, which we're moving into in the month of Shvat, right? Compassionate eating.
He did master his speech the way he talked to his brothers. And
Yes.
that was also a form of
Yes, absolutely. It's the middle column. Mastering compassion in physical intimacy is what we call Yisod, right? The Brit Kodesh. Mastering how we share space and compassionate acceptance of self and other is what we call Chut. right? The whole middle column is about mastering and infusing rachamim into all those areas of connection, doing it in ways that create and birth harmonious fruit, harmonious outcomes. That's probably the most important thing we've said in this whole class today. Right? Because each person's story is part of the unfolding of that. But the goal of where we're going to is to become ourselves masters to the best of our ability. By masters, again, it may be to be a Benoni, to fail at it 9 billion times, but to try again, to never say I can't do it, so I might as well just not try. Okay, so here it says, בת 6 שנים הייתה דינה כשילדה את אסנת משכם. It's a really profound piece of Torah. On its surface, it says, Dinah was 6 years old when she gave birth to Osnat from Shem. So cryptic. We did a deep, long class on Dinah, right? But the first thing that we're just noticing here is, was she literally 6 years old? Perhaps. It was a different time frame then, right? What Chazal wants us to notice is what? The number 6. Exactly. What is the number 6? It's, well, first of all, Chesed, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, Yesod. So 6 is Yesod. When we're counting the Sfirot, and 6 will also give us, right? Za, right? Or Zer Anpin, or 6 midot, in a balanced state of compassion. Right? So what are we balancing? Chesed and Gvura, right? And to get Tiferet and Netzach and Hod. So we're saying there's something about Osnat, even though it was a story that seemed to come from the polarity of the darkness of these stories, she still is coming through Dinah, whose mother is Leah and whose father is Yaakov. There's Kedusha in there. And there's a deep yearning for a compassionate connection with Hashem and with self and with other. That's her DNA. Okay. בפירושו של רבינו בכיה, לתורה על בראשית מ"א מ"ה, מובילים בשם מדרש. So this is from Rabbeinu Bachya. You'll hear him taught sometimes and said as Rabbeinu Bachya, and some people say Rabbeinu Bachaya. Same person. Okay? This is his perush on Perek Mem Aleph of Bereshit, and he quotes here, and he says, biographical details from the life of Osnat. Osnat hayta bat Dina Mishrem ben Hamor. Right? By the way, what does ben Hamor mean? Daughter of the donkey. By he's called Hamor from Chomiyut, materiality. But it's also a remnants to the Chamor of Mashiach. But Bilam for sure, because Bilam is the one who gave the Nebuah. Yeah. Now you're going to hear this is so profound, right? It says, this is a very hard piece of Torah. Okay, sorry. Some of the brothers wanted to kill her. Said, oh, it will make shame on the house of Yaakov, right? So Yaakov chased her away. Now, again, Chazal come and say Yaakov chased her away actually to protect her. But when she ran away, listen to this, she went and she hid. Where did she hide? Inside a snake. Lechach nikraet Osnat. And that's why her daughter is called Osnat. A way that you can now understand that name is that Aleph or Hashem, right, or the one, or the Yeshua, hiding within the snake. Where else did we see a snake? Go back further. Beginning of the year. The beginning of the year, Rosh Hashanah. The ayal, whose thorns, whose shofar, always caught in the snake. Ma asaya. So are you understanding what you're saying? The seeds of the Geula are very deeply connected to the word sneh, the concept of sneh. Right? Remember, it was supposed to Ki'ilu be Yitzchak on right during Akedat Yitzchak, but the Yeshua was hiding in the sneh. Right? Aye haseh, right? Aye haseh, right? He asks, and where is the sneh? Hidden in the sneh, in the svach. Kashaula, Katav b'tzavarav, Katuvo. So it says, when Yaakov sent her away, he made her this kamiyah. He wrote her a special kamiyah, and he put it around her neck. And what it was written there, Kol hamidabek bach, midabek b'zar'o shel Yaakov. Anybody who touches this woman is touching the seed of Yaakov. It's a wild story, right? ויוסף שנשאה ראה הכתב ההוא והצניעו. So Yosef, when Yosef saw this, right? When he got married. והוא שאמר לאביו, and he said to his father, בניי הם אשר נתן לי אלוקים בזה. Elo haktav hasef, right? So remember when he says to Yaakov Avinu that Ephraim and Manasseh are considered as if they're Yaakov Zerah. Right? Why? Because they come from this letter. They come from Osnat. It comes from Dinah. Uma shekatuv b'Torah bat potifera mipnei shekadla b'beito. שכן דרשו הזן, כל המגדל יתום בתוך ביתו מעלה עליו כתוב כאילו ידו. This is very, very, very important to Chazal to say this again and again and again, that a person who raises someone else's child as their own has the halachic status of being the parent of that person. Why is Chazal telling us this? To let us know, number one, that it's not just conceiving a child that makes you a parent. There's a level of a parent from the conception. The same way that we talk about the person who teaches other people Torah, those people are considered your children because you're raising their neshamas. I love that. Okay, so Chazal continue. השלמת פרטים ומעט שינויים מהמובא ברבנו בחייה אנו מוציאים פירוש החזקוני. So he says Rabbeinu Bachaya brings this down, right? But the chizkuni he changes it tiny bit, he adds a few more details. But Dina Mishkan Haita, Ubikshu Lahoga Bnei Yaakov Avinu Misada. Ba Yaakov Avinu, Betlala Kami'a Betzavara, Virgusham Beta, Vehichbia Atzma Ben HaKutsim, Vehabokanim. Okay, again. There's a beautiful expression in Chazal, right? That it's in Sephardi Sidurim. I don't know if it's in Hasidic. I don't know. Nusach Sfar, and maybe Saudi. And it says, Lehachlit et kol hakutsim hasobuvin et Shoshana ha'elyona. Right? The whole purpose of our life is lehachlit, from the word chalet, right? Is to cut away kol hakutsim, all of the thorns, hasobuvin, that surround, et Shoshana ha'elyona, the supernal rose, which many of you probably know. This is referring to the 13-petaled rose, meaning the seat of 13 is always ahava or echad, right? Or the yud gimel midot harachamim. Right? So we're here to cut away any thorns, right? That are surrounding. Who else? Who's called? Remember the class on? She's called the rose amongst the thorns. We've got, right? Because it's the preservation of compassion and kindness in places where you would think it would bring out the opposite, because if they're raised in conditions of cruelty or depravity or selfishness or lacking value for life, and then somehow within those places, these neshamas come despite or even almost because of the darkness that they've encountered. They actually become these beacons of goodness, of compassion, of harmonious and healthy being and living. So Dina was one of them. So when it says here, right, it's almost like not in spite of, but almost because of her experiences with Shem, she goes and she hides in the svach, right, amongst the thorns. Ben hakotsim, behabrokanim, right? She gets hidden. What we're talking about here is Osnat being hidden in the palace of Potiphar and Zilka, right? And yet, what are they raising and protecting? The highest, deepest seeds of goodness. The Hashem hasneh nikaet Osnat. Right? Now it's talking about the sneh here. Right? The sneh that protected her when she ran. You see, it's all the same sneh. It's all the same sneh. It's the thorns that appear to be our worst pain and suffering, which are actually defending and protecting our highest good until the right moment. Okay. So we just close the door. We'll just close the door. Okay. And there's a nusach here, Uba Gabriel, nusach acher Michael. That in itself is a profound thing to unpack, right? So Dina was hiding in the sneh, and a malach, we translate it as an angel. But we have to understand what Chazal mean when we use the term angel. We're talking about a koach, an energy, An angel always means an energy in our terminology, right? It means an energy that creates movement, right? So this is so beautiful in itself that some of Chazal say the energy was the angel or the energy, Gavriel, in other words, from the side of Fulot. And the other side of Chazal come and say, no, it was actually the polar opposite. Thank you, have a beautiful day. That it was Michael. Adarabba, it seems like Fulot, but really it was the energy of Mamash Chesed. Okay, so Chazal continue. ובא גבריאל משחחהו מיכאל והביאה למצרים לפני אשת פוטיפרה וגידלתה. Now, and again, another interesting thing here is that I think Chazal are almost cryptic on purpose here. Who's in the sneh? Is it Dinah in the sneh? Did Dinah give birth and then put Osnat in the sneh? It seems like Dinah herself hid in the sneh and then apparently gave birth and apparently hid Osnat in the sneh. And then from within that sneh, the Malach, either Gavriel or Michael, came and took her, brought her to Mitzrayim, to Eshet Potiphera, who raised her. And I think that Chazal is almost saying it doesn't matter because Dinah and Osnat is the same. It's the Hemshech. It's the continuation of the protection of this part of the feminine that comes from Yaakov and Leah. Right? So this is all happening behind the scenes. So now let's also notice, where is she being taken to? She's not being taken to Canaan. She's not being taken to Eretz Israel. Why would Hashem go out of his way to send a protective force to bring her to Mitzrayim? Because it's not what we think. Not what we think. It's a Yeridah Mitzorach Aliyah. You're all very quiet on Zoom. Do any of you have a question? If you do, oh, is that what it is? Oh, you may not be able to unmute yourselves. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Well, I hope you're enjoying. Okay. So, right, that's so powerful. And we'll see this again and again. Why does this keep showing up in the story? It's code. It's again code again and again and again for us that our roughest, toughest, harshest, cruelest stories are actually holding our light until the right time. Raising them, feeding them, nurturing them, protecting them. Okay, so we'll finish this piece. וכשבא יוסף למצרים, יצאו כל הנשים לראותו מחמת יופיו. So when Yosef came to Mitzrayim, all of the women were trying to get a look at him, right, because he was so beautiful. By the way, what does this mean that he was so beautiful? He was physically beautiful, but Chazal, and especially Rabbi Nachman, teach us that when a man is in tikkun habrit, meaning that he is using physical intimacy within the borders and gedalim of kedushat tahara, right, of holiness and purity. Sorry, this word gets so mistranslated in the English. What we mean by that is with mindfulness and compassion and intentionality and trustworthiness, right? Then Chazal teaches that his face shines. Mamish ol shines out from his face, and it makes women attracted to him because they can sense that their intentions are intentions of goodness intentions to elevate together. So it's another way of learning this when they're all trying to get a look at him. The Gemara goes on and on about his beauty, but it's also talking about here spiritual beauty, that any man who is Shomer of the Brit Kodesh, right? Chazal tell us that he literally shines, and that's how he actually ends up attracting his soulmate. The whole achat zoreket lo chefetz or tafshit, right? And everybody, all these women were throwing something that one of their belongings or a piece of jewelry that they had. Again, this is mamash in line with what Rabbeinu says. When a man is in tikkun havrit, it's that energetically makes the woman want to go after him, whatever his path is, right? She's like, right, I want to follow you because you're connected to God and I want to be connected to God. Okay, and v'zu lo hayala ma lizrok, וזורקת לו הקמיעה שבצווארה. ותסתכל ליוסף שהייתה בת ביתו של יעקב. Right, so now it's talking about Osnat, and Osnat didn't have anything that she owned, right, that she could toss to him. So she tossed. Now apparently this kamiya apparently passed from her mother, right, to her. And again, we said they're really the hamshachiyut, they're the continuation of this tikkun. So she took her kamiya that Yaakov Avinu had written for Dinah, her mother. She took it off of her neck and she tossed it to Yosef. And Yosef looked at it and he recognized the kedusha and recognized this writing. And he recognized that she was the daughter of Yaakov. In other words, she's the daughter of Dinah. V'nas'a lo le'isha, and he married her. What does this mean? What did he see there? What was written there, right? What was written there is that anybody who touches this woman is touching and connecting to Zera Yaakov. So what did he see there? What did he recognize there? Again, the hamshachiyut, the same of the shlemut of tikkun havrit, being connected to the seeds of Rachamim. So gorgeous. Isn't that gorgeous? That's from the Yalkut Shimoni of Parshat Vayeshev. Okay, I think we'll do one more piece and maybe wrap for today. I know there's so much. There's such beautiful things to learn about Osnat. Yep, okay. Yeah. Okay. So, Osnat bat Potifera. V'halo bat Dinah hayta, wasn't she the daughter of Dinah? V'shamanu k'sheba Yaakov Avinu Mishrem katav al tes shel zahav kol ma she'ira lahem im chamor ben Shem. So now Chazal is deepening it and saying, this kamiya, he wrote it on gold. Just every one of these details matters, you know. And what did he write? He wrote what happened between Dinah and Chamor. This Chamor ben Shem. Very profound. וכשילדה דינה את אסנת, נתן הטס על צווארה. And when Osnat was born, Dinah passed this kamiya, which is again, I mean, I really encourage everybody listening to this recording and those of us here in the room, dance this, art this, journal this. What does this mean? What does it mean to write down the stories of our traumas on gold and hang them around our own neck, and then take that off and hang it around the neck of our daughter? And yet that becomes the sign that brings her holy husband. It's actually bringing me to tears. So profound. Again, what we think is weighing on our neck. What we think are the traumas and tragedies we've passed to our daughter, in my case, all of you, everybody listening, is what Yosef recognizes in her, that she's Mizera Yaakov. Something has been preserved here, hidden amongst the thorns. It's so gewaldic. It's mamish bringing me to tears. Okay, so כשילדה דינה את אסנת, נתן הטס על צווארה, והשליכה בחומת מצרים. It says, this is profound, right? This kamiya, right? So here's the question: what was thrown onto the walls of Mitzrayim? It sounds here that the Malach threw Osnat onto the walls of Mitzrayim, and she had the tzavara around her neck. So you see how it comes full circle when she later throws it off the wall of Mitzrayim onto Yosef. אותו היום יוצא פוטיפר לטייל עם נעריו והגיעו עד לחומה. And that day, right, Potiphar was doing a little tiyul, right, with his maid boys, and he came to this wall. Mamish the deepest. Shama kol b'chiat yilod, and he heard the sound of a baby crying. Like this was night. Yeah. Amal el Neuav, and he said to his boy servants, Heviuli et hayeled hazeh, bring me this child. V'ra'a et hatas ve'et hame'orot. Amal Potiphar le'avadav, and he saw this kamiya, right, this gold. And Potiphar said to his servants, Zot habat bat dolim hi. Whoever this child is the daughter of great ones. Hobichuha lebeiti, bring her to my house. Vehiviu la meneket, and bring her a nursemaid. Who does that sound like? Ube'avur shekidla nikaet bito, and because he took care of her, she's called his daughter. Ad kadei. It's just mamish, so beautiful. Okay, we'll have two tiny pieces and we'll finish. Now we're going to come full circle, right? So now Potiphar wants to kill Yosef. Why? Because Osnat's adopted mother has waged complaints that he tried to seduce her, right? Ba'a Osnat, again, I'm hearing the stories. In other words, it's never what it looks like or what it sounds like. It's all hidden in the deepest way. Ba'a Osnat Seidel and Potiphar. Osnat comes to Potiphar in secret. And she swears to him that she knows the truth of what really happened. And she tells him the truth. Now, understand what she's doing. She's going to her stepfather, Kilu, and telling him the truth of what happened with Yosef and Potiphar. And yet we also know that Potiphar was, she had Ruach HaKodesh, first of all. It's not clear. Either she heard it from the astrologers or she herself had Ruach HaKodesh. Something in her knew that she had shayachut to the soul of Yosef. What does that mean, that she had shayachut? It meant that she had something in her, with all of her depraved behavior, that she actually yearned for Tisham Ta'ala. But she had learned that this is what you have to do to get a man. this is how you have to play the game. You have to be, right? How many of us have learned that game, right? This is what you have to do. You have to dress seductively. You have to come on to him. You have to, how many of us have received the message that as women, right? If we didn't grow up from, sometimes even if we did, that if you want the man's love, you get that by exchanging your body, right, for that love. It's very different than sharing love through the exchange of bodies. That's very, very, nothing could be further from the other one, right? So it's so beautiful here to learn out that even though her outer behavior, what was she saying? I want something that Yosef has. What she thought she wanted was his body. What she thought she wanted was, right, what did she really want? His energy, right? She wanted his energy. She thought the way I'm going to get his energy is by seducing him. But what she really wanted was his connection to Shabbat, to Tikkun HaBrit, to whole and compassionate and healthy connection of body and soul, and masculine and feminine, right? And what she thought she was hungry for wasn't really what she was hungry for. And in the end, she actually did get what she was hungry for. So gewaldic, right? She says, through her daughter, right? But that's what she wanted was his kedusha as a part of her. And she did get it as a part of her. And Hashem said to her, Chayecha hagoel ואת לימדת זכות על יוסף, שבטים שאני מעמיד ממנו, על ידיך הם באים. Right? And Hashem himself came out, just talking about Eshet Potiphar. It said, because you judged Yosef, you, Potiphar, gave Yosef the benefit of the doubt. In other words, you listened to Osnat's version of the story. Upon my life, in other words, Hashem is swearing here, making the promise, right? Shvatim shani ma'amid mimenu al yadecha hen ba'im. That is really wild. Okay, listen to this, that Ephraim and Manasseh are also credited as being the sons of Potiphar. What does that mean? It means that he's also getting a tikkun in the story. And his wife is getting a tikkun in the story. Okay, so this is the last piece. Hine avicha chole, vayikach et shnei banav imo. Right, this is the end of Yaakov. This is the end of Parshat Vayechi, and Yaakov is getting ready to pass, and Yosef brings Ephraim and Manasseh. Mi amarlo, who told him? Osnat amarlo. It was Osnat. כך שמעתי שכל המקבל ברכה מפי צדיק כאילו קיבלה מפי שכינה. כך בניך כדי שיהיו לכם. This is from the Midrash Aggadol on Chumash Bereshit, and it's talking about here how did Yosef know to go to his father and get a bracha? Because Osnat told him. And we learn out from here that whoever gets a bracha from a tzaddik, it's as if he directly got a bracha from the Shekhinah. Okay, so this was a beginning of a class. We have much more to do, right? On Osnat, on this.
Just sounds similar to
Yeah. These stories are they're all interwoven. They would sound similar because, again, why are we delving into these stories? Because it's not literature for us, right? It's soul roots. It's our soul DNA. it's the soul DNA, first and foremost, of Am Yisrael and our particular shlichut or mission. And then how to bring that into all of humanity and all of the world, right? And the misperceptions of Kedusha and Tahava, right, as always being this sort of perfect perfection, right, and ties in so beautifully with it being Kafdale Tevet, right, the ultimate is your site, right, and this, what it is to be a Benoni, right, to hold the reality of our parents and ourselves and our grandparents, our great-grandparents and our children and our grandchildren and great-grandchildren, to hold the realities of their stories with great hope, with great Emuna, with great humbleness that we don't know what's happening behind the scenes, and what's getting fixed, and what's getting rewoven, and what's getting put together, getting ready to be birthed. And I think I would end with saying that there's a beautiful man who I never met, but I've been reading a book written about him. His name is David Ben Yosef. He lived in Kashet in the Golan, and he wrote a very famous book. And the title is Yesh Sikui La'ahava. Is there hope for love? Is there a chance for love? This is really a Tu B'Shvat story, and I should save it for Tu B'Shvat, but I can't sit on it because it's such a good story. So he writes in his book about after the 1948 war, and in the Gush, there was this big tree, and I guess the tree had taken a hit in the war, and this big, beautiful tree was basically burned, and the people in the Gush wanted to cut this tree down, and David Ben Yosef said, no, don't cut this tree down. And he would go every morning. He writes in this book, Yesh Sikui La'ahava. He would go every morning to the tree, and he would say, Ani ma'amin bach. I believe in you. I believe in your life. I believe in your worth. I believe in your value. I believe that you have the strength to come back to life. I believe there's a purpose for you. And he makes me cry because that's the type of person I am. And he would go to this tree every morning, and sure enough, the tree did come back to life and totally bloomed and sprouted. I read this story this past Shabbos, and when I read it, it touched me so deeply because I thought of the inner chatter that goes through my head all day, and it's not that. And it can be neutral to there is no hope, right, for you specifically. And so since Shabbos, I have been talking to myself as the tree. And I have been saying, Reva Emuna, I believe in you. I believe you will come back to life. I believe you will sprout. I believe there's more fruit left in you. I believe in your life. I believe in your goodness. I believe in your children. I believe in your parents. I believe that your stories will be healed. And it's been energetically rewiring me and changing me just since Shabbos. It's such a powerful meditation, right? And so I just want to share that with all of you on the recording, all of you on Zoom. Speak words of faith over yourself. I woke up this morning and I said, Moja Ani, and I heard it. We've said this before, but I heard it in a new way. You believe in me. That was beautiful. But then I began to speak to myself. I believe that you'll use your time in a good way today. I believe that if you fall, Hashem will give you strength to get back up and then start again. And it gave me back my life. It gave me back my soul. And I waited, I think, my whole life for other people to give me those words. energetically to get that message from them. But I realized for the first time that it's up to me to give it to myself. I believe in you. I believe in your soul. I believe in your body. I believe in your ability to change. I believe that you can make space for Hashem to change your nature to become everything that you've always wanted to become. And I believe in you. Okay, all of you, since I think that we muted you by accident, we love you. Have a beautiful day. Thank you for joining us. This is the Alter Rebbe's message. And Tanya, somebody wrote, I don't even know who you are. Could you say who you are? Oh, that's so beautiful. Thank you for tying up the whole sheet so beautifully. Could you say who you are who just shared that? This is the maybe you don't want to say, maybe you wanted to send one. Okay, thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you very much, Reva Emuna. It's Pesherifkin, Bar Yochai. Just got you at the end.
Oh, thank you.
Hi, dear.
Wow. I love the picture.
Likvod Alter Rebbe. I said I want to listen to
Alter
Likvod
Rebbe, who believes so deeply in all of us. Wow, thank you.
Bye, sweetie. Thank you.